These shelves have been a back burner project for about a year now, mainly because I couldn't find a bracket design that I really liked. So I decided to design my own. Evolution Power Tools reached out to me right as I was starting this build, so it was a perfect opportunity to add a metal cutting chop saw to my garage. This chop saw was mind-blowing. The metal right off the cut was cold to the touch. It also didn't shoot up a lot of sparks and left a decent finish on my material. Okay, so I have laid out marks on basically what's a story stick for where I'm going to be doing bends. So right here, 1 inch, back here, 12.5 inches, and then also where I'm adding my screw holes. This is my first foray back into metalworking, probably since high school. And I really enjoyed this process. I think this is just the beginning of another set of skills to add to what I'm doing. Over to the drill press, I made a simple fence so I'd be able to use this as a template to drill all my holes. Then I could move on to the manliest part of this project, which was bending some metal. How's the saying go? Buy once, cry once. This is a very inexpensive bender, and I do want to point out these zip ties here. That's just holding this pin in place. The center pin is actually already bent. So to keep that bend in the pin in the exact same spot, I just zip tied basically the whole pin in place. That way when I'm turning, this isn't spinning at the same time and moving the little hump from the bend side to side. So yeah, you pay for. My marks at 1 inch and 12.5 inches is where I added my 90-degree bends. Now the design of these shelves is nothing earth-shattering, but I definitely want something that would give some contrast against the ash shelves. I use my angle grinder just to clean up all of the rough edges along the shelving brackets. And then attempted to use this cheap countersink bit to add recesses for all my screws. Hey, what are you doing here? But I'm noticing not everyone is hitting that subscribe button, so I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to do that. So go ahead. It's okay, I'll wait. Yeah, just down there. You good? Okay, good. Thanks, I'll get back to this. I use isopropyl alcohol just to clean any oil residue off of the brackets, as well as remove the Sharpie marks. And then I added a layer of paste wax just to help protect the pieces from rusting over time. I did find that heating the metal up first made it a lot easier to buff in the paste wax, but just be careful. Woo! The bender that I bought was about $150 Canadian, this much US dollars, and it was totally worth the price of admission considering other projects we have coming up in the future. We did try using a vise before I purchased the bender and using that with some heat to bend the metal, and it was working. It just wasn't super consistent. So if that's not something you want to get into, then I would definitely suggest reaching out to a local fabricator, and they'd easily be able to make brackets like this for you. I'm a big advocate of the track saw. It's great for doing lots of operations. In this case, I actually use it to joint all my boards for my shelf pieces. But if you have a joiner, you can use that too. With my boards jointed, I could rip width over on the table saw. I love having my planer set up in this way. It makes it so much easier to wheel it around and set up for doing any milling operations. If you haven't seen that video, I've put a card up in the top corner that you can check out after this video is done. It's a little fancy. This 8/4 ash was stupid heavy, so I'm super glad that my son is at an age and a size that he can actually help me do these kind of operations. Planer snipe with a lunchbox planer is pretty much inevitable, so I find keeping my boards tight together reduces the amount of snipe I actually get to a minimum. With all my material dimensioned to rough thicknesses, I went over to the miter saw and I trimmed everything to its final length. To avoid any gaps, I actually used the shelving brackets themselves to measure how wide the shelves needed to be. Scout's Honor, this is the only kind of epoxy pour you'll ever see on this channel. I typically pour from the back side, but I put tuck tape on the show side. That way when the epoxy seeps all the way through, it leaves a smooth finish that's a lot easier to sand. So there's a decent sized crack in this end of what will probably be the bottom shelf. There's a lot more character in it, so I'll probably use it on the bottom. And I've decided that I'm gonna try my hand at doing some butterflies. No maths were used on this. I literally just drew something that I felt looked good. But I made sure that my grains were oriented opposite to each other. That's really the magic of a butterfly key, just to make sure that your grains are oriented in that way, just to add that additional strength and prevent wood movement. Using CA glue and blue tape, I was able to easily lay out where my butterfly keys needed to be cut into the shelf. This gave me a perfect outline to follow with my router and an 1/8 inch compression bit. After cleaning everything up with a chisel, I was able to come back and hammer in my butterfly keys. I knew I only had one shot at this, so I used a block just to add even pressure to each of the butterfly keys. I'll be honest, I'm really happy with how these turned out, based on them being my first attempt. After cleaning everything up with a block plane, I came back to my material and grain popped it with water, before moving on to adding the tiniest of roundovers and doing my final sanding and prep for finish. My buddies over at Windsor Plywood lent me their fancy glue gun so I could fix some minor cracks and imperfections in the wood. The idea of this is it's similar to using epoxy, but it dries instantly. I finished everything with a water-based finish, and in my effort to not leave the house, I used my last foam brush, which didn't last long. After resorting to using a janky chip brush, I moved on to removing the existing cabinet for where the shelves were going to go. About a year ago, my kid mistook the cabinet door for a swing, so we've been without doors since then. Now these cabinets didn't go to waste. I had a good buddy come and pick them up so he could use them in his new garage. So because of the weight of these shelves, I for sure need to hit all the studs on my way up. But I only have one screw in there right now and it's holding pretty firm just where it is. All I've done is mark the holes where my first set of screws went, and then I've just used my line laser on my stud finder just to mark out sequentially where the stud is all the way up so I can follow it as I go. We kind of hit pause here so my wife could repaint the entire kitchen. I'm totally good at this, and I love that she does get involved in these projects and offers her design ideas as well as a helping hand. When I install shelving brackets, I usually install the first one and use that to find level to install my second bracket. We did have one bracket that actually wasn't going to hit a stud, so I used this opportunity to teach my wife how to use plastic anchors. She was pretty impressed with herself. But unfortunately I screwed up and got her to use too long of screws. Just stop shaking it.
This is what not to do.
So after removing the old anchors, we installed new ones and shorter screws, and then we could attach all the shelves permanently so they wouldn't slide side to side. To be super transparent, I really didn't want to do this project when Aaron first thought of it. I was pretty intimidated with the idea of pulling out one of our kitchen cupboards and just replacing them with open shelves. But now that it's done, I love the way it looks, and we've gotten such great feedback from people just on the styling of it and just how great it fits against the backsplash in our kitchen. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this project, and if you have any tips about installing shelves, I would love to hear those as well. Thanks for following along on this build. Now if you've made it this far, I've set up the next videos that you can start watching, just so you can see some of the other work I'm doing on my channel. Take care.